Okay, so yeah, what I'm going to present is a package that I've been making over the past couple months called shinysense. So first, an outline. I decided that I was going to go with a very gimmicky presentation format, so I decided to make it in sections of who, what, how, why, and where. These are kind of things that I wish that I would get when I would go to presentations, so I was hoping that I can give you a broad overview of what I'm doing, and then you can use it or decide that it's a horrible idea afterwards. So first, who am I? Like was said, I'm a PhD student at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. Currently, I'm working with Jeff Leake at the Johns Hopkins Data Science Lab. And formerly, I was a software engineer and a data scientist and a data visualization person. There's no real official title for that. And I was also a data journalist at the New York Times. So what section? What is shinysense? Shinysense is basically just an R package filled with shiny modules that use JavaScript to gather data from the various sensors that are present on all of our devices today, but primarily phones because we've packed them filled with sensors. It's mobile first in that a lot of the functions are built to work really well on mobile devices, and I can make up reasons why that is the case, but a lot of the things just don't work that well on desktops. So, well, I should go down. So what senses are present? And senses really just means functions in this context. Like I said, I'm fully embracing gimmicks. So touch. This is Shiny Swiper is the first touch that we have, and it's kind of the where this package originated. And so basically, it just embeds a little card in a Shiny app that you can throw anything that you would put in a Shiny app UI into. You know, you put an H1, a div, anything you want, and then it displays that card, and then you can swipe it. And you can swipe left, right, up, and down, and it will return to Shiny, the server function, a reactive object saying the user swiped this direction. So this demo is just the stats quotes package, and you can decide which way you like, and you can see how it's updating the data below that. And it's used in our app paper, which you will learn a lot more about in the next talk. The next one is another touch one. It's called Shiny Drawer. And it's a simple line chart that allows you to obscure part of the graph and then have the user draw what they think the rest of the data is. And then once they're done drawing, it will reveal what the actual rest of the data is. And this was the type of plot, I guess, that was popularized by the New York Times article, "You Draw It, What Got Better, Worse," during President Obama's presidency. And so I blatantly stole it from that, although I have to say I have a small ability to do that because I actually collected all of the data for that article, but I did not make the visualization. So the next one is hearing, called Shiny Ear, which is probably my least favorite name of all of the functions. And it basically just allows you to record audio. You press a button, so when you embed it, you just embed a button. You press it like this, and you speak, or do whatever you want. You can, and then it will just return the fast Fourier transform signal from that recording. Motion is the next one, call it Shiny Mover. And it reads the accelerometer data in your phone. Laptops don't actually have it, which is unfortunate. So this is a demo of me training an app to recognize spellcasts from Harry Potter. And so basically you just press it, and it records XYZ acceleration, and it's actually very high quality data. It's pretty impressive how much data these sensors gather in the phones. So next one is sight, but it's not there. Apple is very picky with what they allow JavaScript to access through their APIs, the web APIs, and I only have an iPhone, so I can't develop it on Android, but I'm coming, I'll fix it soon. And then another not sense thing that I've added to the package is called Shiny Pop-Up, which I have been recently informed is not actually called a pop-up, it's called a modal, meaning it doesn't actually pop up a window. But this is a very annoyingly fast GIF. But basically, with a lot of the functions that are in the package, you're going to be collecting users' data. And so usually it's a good idea to tell them that you're going to be collecting their data. And so this was developed because in our paper app, we need to tell people, say, hey, we're recording your data, so make sure you know that so you don't sue us later. And so this basically just, you wrap your app in it, and then you basically force the user to accept your conditions before they can use the rest of the app. So that way you can at least claim that you told them that you were going to take their data. So now we're into the why. So one of the reasons why I decided to build shinysense is Shiny's role in data science. Coming from a JavaScript development background to R, one of the things that really got me is that they operate in very different realms. And R has been extremely good in the modeling and exploration stage and getting raw data, and then JavaScript is very good for deployment. And then Shiny sits in here, and when I see people use Shiny apps traditionally, and this conference has shown me that this is not always the case, but they tend to be, you've gotten your data and you've made a model, and you want to show the model. It's a class presentation or something along those lines. And so it fits kind of in this arbitrary data science progression from the raw data to the exploration to the modeling to the presentation and then deployment, kind of in this little sliver right now. And one of the things that I would like to see shinysense or shinysense-esque packages do is kind of expand this range. And so shinysense in particular brings it back to the raw data. In like the demo that I gave with the moving app, you can actually collect raw data in Shiny. And that's, I think, a tool that, as a biostatistician, we get training in how to develop clinical trials and to say, this is how you need to collect data for good, so we can do good statistics on it. And I think that as data analysis is getting more and more embedded in applications, that idea of data collection is going to broaden. And so if we can get statisticians or Shiny developers in general in charge of the actual raw data collection going into the models, I think that could be very powerful. And then on the deployment side, you notice I had a couple of the touch functions, and those I have seen as kind of valuable for making the Shiny apps work on phones. And that's something that I have found Shiny apps to be not particularly great at, is sitting on a 4-inch screen. So this is kind of repeating that. But basically, we want to make more mobile-friendly apps using Shiny. And this is good for, the first example that I always say is, if you've trained a model for decision-making in a clinical setting, if you can, not have to have a doctor go sit at a computer and type in some stuff and then have your model spit it out, if you can actually have them on an iPad or a phone walking around the ER or wherever it's embedded, I think that would potentially open up a lot of opportunities for Shiny to infiltrate into the real world. And also, the actual real reason why I made shinysense is this app called Paper. Like I said, you're going to hear a lot about it in Lucy's talk coming up. But basically, we were building a Shiny app that ended up getting pretty complex. So I added swiping to this app, and that involved binding JavaScript and building kind of a very complex nested structure of divs and all of these things. And the code looked really bad. And if you've ever worked with other people on software, the second that you have hundreds of lines of code that only you know how to use, that is not good for maintainability. So abstracting this away into a Shiny module, this being Shiny Swiper at this point, proved very valuable in making the code base simpler and making it easier for people to maintain. And it also, it's a lot easier as opposed to saying div ID equals touch card and then a bunch of stuff in it. When you just say Shiny Swiper, it makes the UI.R a lot easier to read. So now how? The broad overview of how it's made, like I've said before, on the R side, we're using Shiny modules, which is a concept that I will explain in 2 seconds. And then on the JavaScript side, I've written little custom JavaScript libraries for each of these functions that I then bring in. And the reason for that is when you write your own libraries, you can minify the code to make it a lot lighter weight so that it doesn't take 5 minutes to load 20 megabytes of JavaScript every time the user opens up the app. So this is just, I'm sure a lot of you know about Shiny modules, but this text is extremely small. But basically, this is a fully functioning Shiny app that uses a Shiny module. It is a completely pointless example of a Shiny module because it just replicates the P tag. But basically, you have a UI function here, and this specifies the UI. So you write it like normal, but there's this very useful namespace function that allows you to basically put a bunch of these on the screen, and you never have a conflict in namespace, which is very nice. And then, so this one, we're just saying, put out a message, and then in the server, we pass it a message. And so then, this is the UI in this, so I just, you can put, the example is, there's 2 examples of our module, and then we call the module twice using this call module function, and then it outputs. And so it's really nice for, making your code more declarative as opposed to just putting a P text output NS. It's just call module. In this case, say message. And this is what it produces, that exact code. And then the JavaScript side, I realize this is an R conference, so I won't stick on this too much. But basically, I just write little JavaScript libraries that do all of the things on the JavaScript side, and it's nice because it's all on the client side, so it doesn't slow down the server, and I try to keep as much on the client side as possible to minimize the amount of communication back and forth between the server, which will always be slower than running the code on either side. And then this has link to the full code. The link to the slides will be afterwards. So how do but you use this if you wanted to use it? It's not on CRAN, so you have to install it from GitHub, but pretty straightforward. And then to use it in your app, kind of use just the standard module formulation because it exposes each of the senses has its own exported function with the UI appended at the end. So in this example, we have the drawer UI, which is the draw the graph thing. And then, so in the UI, you would say, put this in there, the Shiny drawer UI, and then, your unique tag, like you would give it to any Shiny function. And then you would say, call module, and then it will do it. And yeah, there's no internet, so this iframe to do the demo will not work. But it's the exact same thing as the GIF that I showed earlier. So now to where. So where is shinysense being used? So a few people have actually started using this, which is scary because it's very raw at this point. It's very buggy. But like I said, Paper, which is a Tinder-esque package, and that uses Shiny Swiper and Shiny Pop-Up. And then somebody made a Louisville crime rates app where they took a bunch of the drawer things and made people guess the crime rates in Louisville, Kentucky, which is in the US. Somebody wrote a Shiny app that they have a Markov chain bot that generates tweets, and then you basically I think it's a reinforcement learning demo where you say, like, this is a good job, you did a good job making this tweet, or don't do that ever again. That uses Shiny Swiper, and then another ROpenSci project that Lucy is involved with is Contributor, which is linking people, R users, with GitHub issues, which is kind of cool. And so where shinysense is now is basically it's very, very raw. There are no tests in it at all on the R side. There are on the JavaScript side, but not on the R side. They haven't built a robot that can swipe to test yet. But it has been used in some pretty well-trafficked apps and hasn't seemed to cause any bad problems. So, and where do I see it going? Kind of like I said before, I would like to see it expanding the range of where Shiny sits in the ecosystem of data analysis, and then also bringing it into more mobile environments, and then maybe CRAN eventually, but we'll see. So, thank you. And these slides are on my website. at shinysense_useR 2017, and these are some other links. So.